The girl who replaced her 60-year-old uncle as a driver accidentally met a millionaire CEO and... Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Emma Brooks never thought that one small decision would completely change her life. It was early morning, the sun barely peeking over the skyline of New York City. The air was crisp, filled with the sounds of car horns and distant chatter. Emma tightened her worn jacket as she stepped out of her uncle's small apartment. Her 60-year-old uncle, who had been working as a driver for years, had fallen sick, and today she would replace him for one shift. It was not the life she had imagined for herself, but bills had to be paid, and her uncle's medical expenses were piling up. She climbed into the driver's seat of his old black sedan, the smell of leather and coffee filling the car. Just one day, she muttered to herself, adjusting the rearview mirror. Her reflection stared back at her tired eyes, but still full of determination. The city didn't care about her struggles. It moved fast, and she had to keep up. Her first client of the day was scheduled for 8 a.m., a business pickup in Midtown. She checked the address twice and drove through the morning traffic, gripping the wheel tightly as the radio murmured soft jazz. When she pulled up in front of a towering glass building, a man in a navy suit was already waiting by the curb, talking on his phone. He looked sharp, confident, the kind of person who belonged in a world far different from hers. Emma quickly got out and opened the door for him. "Good morning, sir," she said politely. The man gave her a quick glance and nodded, still talking on the phone. "Airport, please," he said curtly before sliding into the back seat. His tone was firm but not rude. Emma closed the door and got behind the wheel. The silence between them was heavy except for the sound of the engine and his low voice as he discussed what sounded like a high-stakes business deal. She couldn't help but glance at him through the mirror, his sharp jawline, the way his hand tapped rhythmically on his briefcase. He looked like someone who had everything under control, someone from another universe entirely. Halfway through the ride, rain began to fall, gentle at first, then turning into a downpour. Traffic slowed to a crawl, and the man sighed, checking his watch. "You're doing fine," he said suddenly, his voice softer this time. Emma blinked in surprise. "Thank you, sir," she replied quietly. When they finally reached the airport, she parked near the departure zone. As he stepped out, she noticed something. He had left his phone on the seat. "Sir!" "Wait!" she called out, rushing after him through the rain. He turned, confused as she held up the phone. Drops of rain soaked her hair, but she didn't care. "You forgot this," she said, handing it over. For a moment, their eyes met his, full of surprise, hers, full of sincerity. "Thank you," he said, his voice now noticeably warmer. "Not many people would have run out in this weather." Emma smiled faintly. "Well, my uncle always says, integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one's watching." He studied her for a moment, as if trying to place her words somewhere deep in his mind. Then he gave a small nod. "What's your name?" "Emma," she replied. "Emma Brooks." "I'm Liam Parker," he said, extending his hand. "Nice to meet you, Emma." She hesitated before shaking it, unaware that this small moment, under the rain and city noise, was the beginning of something that would change both their lives forever. The next morning, Emma woke up to the sound of rain tapping softly against her window. The memory of the previous day lingered in her mind, the suited man, his calm but powerful presence, and the brief moment they shared under the rain. She shook her head and smiled faintly, trying to brush it off. To her, it was just another job, another day. But something about that man's gaze had stayed with her. She got ready quickly, put on her uncle's driver jacket again, and made herself a cup of coffee before heading out. Her uncle, still lying on the couch with a blanket over him, coughed lightly. "You sure you can handle another day, Em?" he asked, his voice raspy. "You need the rest more than I do," she said with a reassuring smile. "Just focus on getting better. I can handle this." She grabbed the keys and left the small apartment, stepping into the cool morning air. The streets glistened from the rain that had fallen overnight, and the city was just waking up. She climbed into the car, the scent of leather and faint traces of cologne still lingering from yesterday's passenger. It reminded her of him, Liam Parker. She shook her head again, muttering, "Stop thinking about it. He probably doesn't even remember you. But as fate would have it, the universe had other plans. Around midday, she received a call from her uncle's company dispatcher. Emma, there's a last-minute client request. Big one. Some CEO's personal assistant called. The driver on schedule canceled, and they specifically asked for the same car as yesterday. You available? Emma's hand froze on the steering wheel. Same car? She repeated slowly. Yeah, the voice on the other end said. You up for it or not? She hesitated for a moment but then nodded to herself. Yeah, I'll take it. When she arrived at the pickup location, her heart skipped a beat. It was the same glass building as the day before. And there he was, Liam Parker, standing by the curb, talking to someone on his phone again. This time, he wasn't wearing his usual serious expression. He looked a little less guarded, maybe even thoughtful. As she pulled up, he noticed her through the rain-speckled windshield. His eyes widened slightly in recognition before a small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Well, he said as he opened the door. Didn't expect to see you again so soon, Miss Brooks. Emma blinked. Surprised he remembered her name. Neither did I, Mr. Parker, she replied, her tone polite but slightly nervous. He chuckled softly and got into the back seat. Looks like the universe has a funny way of arranging things. The car ride started in silence again, but it did not feel as heavy as before. The air between them was less distant, more curious. After a few minutes, Liam spoke. You said something yesterday about integrity, that your uncle told you it's doing the right thing when no one's watching. I've been thinking about that. Emma glanced at him in the mirror, surprised. You have? He nodded. Yeah, you don't hear things like that very often anymore. Most people would have kept the phone. But you didn't. She smiled faintly. That's not who I am. I can see that, he said quietly. There was a pause and then he asked, So, is this what you do full-time? Driving? Emma hesitated. Not really. I studied art. I wanted to open a studio one day, but things didn't work out. My uncle got sick and, well, life happened. Liam leaned back, thoughtful. Art, huh? That's interesting. It was, she said softly, looking out at the traffic. Now it's just something I dream about when I can't sleep. For a moment there was silence again, filled only by the hum of the engine and the sound of the rain starting up once more. Then Liam spoke, his tone softer than before. Dreams don't die, Emma. Sometimes they just wait for the right time. She met his gaze in the mirror, their eyes locking for a brief second. There was something in his voice and understanding she couldn't explain. When they arrived at his destination, he stayed in the car a moment longer before stepping out. Thank you for the ride, he said. And Emma, I'll see you around. She watched him disappear into the building, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. As she drove away, she couldn't help but smile. Maybe, just maybe, fate wasn't done with them yet. Days passed, but that second encounter stayed in Emma's mind like a faint melody she could not forget. She told herself it was just coincidence, that their paths had crossed twice and that was it. But deep down, something about Liam Parker lingered. His calm confidence, his words about dreams not dying, they replayed in her thoughts during quiet moments. Work had been steady since then, and Emma continued to fill in for her uncle as his health improved slowly. One afternoon, as she finished dropping off another client, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Miss Brooks? The voice on the other end was smooth and familiar. Her heartbeat skipped. Mr. Parker? She said hesitantly. He chuckled softly. So you do remember me. I hope you are not too busy today. I could use a driver for a few hours. My assistant is tied up with meetings. Emma hesitated, looking at the rain starting to fall outside again. Of course. Where to, sir? I will text you the address, he replied. And Emma, no need for the sir. Liam is fine. The call ended, and within an hour she found herself once again pulling up in front of the same glass building. Liam stepped out, this time without his usual suit jacket, sleeves rolled up, tie slightly loosened. He looked different, more relaxed, almost approachable. You are becoming my favorite driver, he said with a smile as he climbed into the back seat. She grinned. I will take that as a compliment. It is, he replied simply. The drive that afternoon was different. Instead of business calls, Liam asked questions about her life. He seemed genuinely interested, not out of politeness, but curiosity. So art, he said. Tell me about it. What kind of art do you make? Emma's eyes lit up slightly. Mostly sketching and painting. I used to draw people, moments, emotions. I wanted to open a studio for kids who could not afford art classes, but it never happened. Liam nodded thoughtfully. You know, I always admired people who could create. My world is numbers, meetings, deadlines. It is not exactly inspiring. She smiled softly. Every world has its beauty. Even numbers tell stories if you look close enough. He looked at her through the mirror, clearly intrigued by her words. You have an interesting way of seeing things, Emma. They continued to talk, and by the time she dropped him off, the tension that once existed between them had faded completely. He paid her and added with a light tone, You know, you do not look like someone who should be driving people around. You look like someone who should be running something of her own. She blushed, caught off guard. Maybe one day, she said, when life decides to cooperate. Maybe life just needs a little push, he replied, stepping out of the car with a knowing smile. That night, Emma could not sleep. His words echoed in her mind. Maybe life just needs a little push. She looked at her old sketchbook lying on the table. Dust had settled on it, the pages yellowed at the edges. Slowly, she opened it and flipped through the sketches' faces of strangers, city streets, fleeting moments captured in pencil strokes. It had been months since she had last touched a brush, but the passion that once burned inside her flickered back to life. Over the next few days, she started drawing again in her spare time, quick sketches during lunch breaks, rough outlines in between rides. Each stroke felt like rediscovering a piece of herself she had forgotten. Then, one morning, her phone rang again. Liam's name appeared on the screen. Good morning, Emma, he said, his voice cheerful. I hope I am not interrupting. Not at all, she said, trying to sound calm though her heart raced. Actually, I was calling to ask a favor, he continued. My company is hosting a charity gala next week. I could use some help managing the logistics, transportation, and coordination. It pays well, but more importantly, I think you might enjoy it. She blinked, taken aback. Me? But I am not. You are organized, reliable, and sharp, Liam interrupted gently. Besides, I could use someone I trust. Emma hesitated but finally agreed. All right, I will do it. Good, Liam said warmly. And Emma? Wear something nice this time? You are not driving that night. When the call ended, Emma sat frozen, her heart pounding. She had no idea what awaited her at that gala, but one thing was certain: her life was about to take a turn she never expected. The night of the charity gala arrived faster than Emma had expected. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the simple navy blue dress she had borrowed from her friend. It was elegant but modest, nothing flashy, but enough to make her feel confident. Her hair was loosely curled, and for the first time in a long while she allowed herself to feel beautiful. Her uncle smiled proudly from the couch. You look amazing, Em. Who knew my replacement driver would clean up like that? She laughed softly, shaking her head. It is just an event, Uncle Joe. I am helping out, not attending as a guest. But deep down, a small part of her could not help but wonder if Liam would notice her. She arrived at the hotel where the gala was being held, a grand venue filled with chandeliers, golden lights, and the gentle hum of classical music. Guests in formal attire mingled, their laughter echoing through the hall. Emma took a deep breath and focused on her job, helping the event staff coordinate arrivals, check schedules, and ensure everything went smoothly. She had just finished directing a group of guests when a familiar voice called out behind her. You clean up pretty well, Miss Brooks. She turned to see Liam standing a few feet away, dressed in a black tuxedo that seemed tailored to perfection. He looked effortlessly handsome, confident, but with a warmth in his eyes that immediately put her at ease. Mr. Parker, she said with a polite smile. You look different outside of a car seat. He chuckled. That is a compliment, I hope. Maybe, she teased. Their playful tone drew a few glances from nearby guests, and Emma quickly straightened, reminding herself she was there to work. I should probably get back to my duties. But Liam stopped her gently. Relax, Emma. Tonight, you are part of the team, not just staff. Enjoy yourself a little. Before she could reply, one of Liam's business associates approached. Liam, you did not tell us you brought someone new. Is she with the event team or? The question hung in the air, polite but probing. Emma immediately spoke, her tone professional. I am assisting with coordination tonight. Excuse me. She quickly stepped away, feeling a slight pang of embarrassment. Later that evening, as the night went on, Emma found herself watching Liam from afar as he interacted with guests, smiling, shaking hands, carrying conversations effortlessly. He looked like he belonged in that world of wealth and influence. And yet, when their eyes met across the room, he gave her that same warm smile, the one that made her feel seen. Around midnight, as the event began to wind down, Liam found her again near the refreshment table. "You disappeared," he said. "I had work to do," she replied, smiling faintly. "You were busy being the perfect host, and you were busy avoiding me," he teased gently. She rolled her eyes but smiled. "Maybe." They both laughed quietly. Then Liam's tone shifted slightly. "Emma, you did an incredible job tonight. The staff said everything ran smoother than ever. I am grateful." "Thank you," she said softly. "It means a lot." He hesitated for a moment before saying, "You know, when I first met you, I thought you were just another driver trying to make ends meet. But every time I see you, you surprise me. You are not just hardworking, you are remarkable." His words caught her off guard. "Liam, she began, but he interrupted with a small smile. "Do not worry. I am not trying to make you uncomfortable. I just wanted you to know that I see you." Before she could respond, one of the guests called him away. "Duty calls," he said with a grin. "Save me a dance before the night ends?" She laughed nervously, not sure if he was serious. But later, as the orchestra played a slow melody, she felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning around, she found Liam standing there, extending his hand. "May I?" he asked. For a moment, she froze, then smiled and nodded. As they danced, surrounded by glittering lights and soft music, Emma felt a strange sense of peace. It was as if, for that brief moment, the world outside did not exist. She did not feel like the girl struggling to pay bills or the stand-in driver. She felt like someone who mattered. When the song ended, Liam looked at her, his voice barely above a whisper. "You belong here more than you think, Emma." She looked up at him, her heart racing. "Maybe one day," she replied softly. But as he walked her out later that night, she could not shake the feeling that her life had just crossed a line it would never return from. The morning after the gala, Emma woke up still replaying the events of the night before. The music, the lights, and most of all the dance with Liam. It felt unreal. She had gone there as staff, yet somehow he had made her feel like she belonged among those glittering people. She smiled faintly to herself before shaking the thought away. It had just been a dance, nothing more. People like Liam Parker did not fall for girls like her. Still, when her phone buzzed, her heart jumped. It was a message from him. "Hope you got home safe. Thank you again for everything last night. Lunch on me?" She stared at the screen for a full minute, unsure how to respond. Part of her wanted to say no, to keep her distance, but curiosity and something deeper made her type back, "Sure. When and where?" A few hours later, she found herself sitting across from him at a small restaurant near Central Park. It was a far cry from the elegant gala, but it felt warm and genuine. Liam smiled when she arrived, standing up to greet her. "You look different in daylight," he said, his tone teasing but kind. "That is a compliment, I promise." She laughed softly. "I will take your word for it." As they ordered, the conversation flowed easily. He told her about his company, how he had built it from scratch, how success had come at a cost. She listened, surprised at how open he was. "It is not always glamorous," he said. "People see the money and the title, but not the sleepless nights or the sacrifices." "I can imagine," Emma replied. "Dreams are never easy, but I guess that is what makes them worth it." He looked at her, his eyes warm. "You talk like someone who knows what chasing dreams feels like." She smiled. "Maybe because I do." For a moment, their eyes met, and neither of them looked away. It felt like something was shifting, something real. After lunch, they walked through the park, their conversation turning lighter. They talked about art, favorite books, childhood memories. Emma could not remember the last time she had laughed that much. As they reached the end of the path, Liam turned to her. "Emma, I know this might sound forward, but I would like to help you with your dream." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "Your art studio," he said. "You told me about it. I have connections, resources. I could help you get started." She shook her head immediately. "No, Liam. I appreciate the thought, but I cannot accept that. I do not want you to feel obligated to help me just because—" "It is not about obligation," he interrupted gently. "I believe in what you are capable of. You have something rare, Emma. You just need a chance." His sincerity disarmed her. She wanted to argue, to refuse, but his eyes told her this was not pity. It was belief. "I will think about it," she said finally. He smiled, clearly satisfied. "That is all I ask." Over the next few weeks, they saw more of each other. Sometimes it was coffee between meetings, other times late-night phone calls when he wanted to unwind from work. Their bond grew quietly, built on shared honesty and small moments that felt too natural to ignore. Emma began to see the man behind the suit, the one who listened when she talked, who remembered the small things she said, who treated her not like an employee, but like an equal. Yet deep down, she was afraid. She knew their worlds were different. He was a man of influence, and she was still living paycheck to paycheck, taking odd jobs to support her uncle. One evening, while sketching by her window, her phone buzzed again. It was Liam. "Big news. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? I have something to show you." The next day, she met him in front of an empty building downtown. The windows were covered in dust. The For Lisa sign faded. "What is this?" she asked, confused. Liam smiled. "A space with potential. You once said you dreamed of opening a studio. Well, this could be it." Emma's breath caught. "Liam, I cannot let you do this." "You are not letting me do anything," he said calmly. "We are doing this together. You will run it. I will help with the investment. It is not charity, Emma. It is a partnership." She looked at him, torn between fear and excitement. "Why me?" she asked softly. He smiled, stepping closer. "Because you see the world differently, and because you reminded me what purpose feels like." Emma's eyes shimmered with emotion. For the first time in years, she dared to believe again. The next few months changed everything for Emma. What had once been just a dream slowly turned into reality. With Liam's help, the dusty old building transformed into a beautiful art studio filled with light, color, and possibility. Every wall told a story. Every canvas represented a piece of her journey. She spent her days painting, teaching local kids, and curating exhibits for young artists who never had a chance to showcase their talent. For the first time in years, Emma woke up with a sense of purpose. She could not believe this was her life now. Every time she saw the studio's sign Brooks Art Collective, her heart swelled with pride. Liam visited often, sometimes bringing coffee, sometimes just to watch her work. He never interfered, never tried to take credit. He simply supported her quietly, content to see her succeed. One afternoon, as the golden sunlight streamed through the windows, Liam walked in holding 2 cups of coffee. "You are impossible to keep up with," he said, smiling as he watched her adjust a painting on the wall. "You have not sat down once since I got here." Emma laughed softly. "Artists do not sit. We chase inspiration before it disappears." He handed her the cup and leaned against the doorway. "So, are you happy?" She turned, meeting his eyes. "Happier than I have ever been." "Good," he said quietly. "You deserve that." There was a moment of silence between them, filled with something unspoken, something deeper. Emma looked away first, her cheeks warming. "You have done so much for me, Liam. I do not even know how to thank you." "You already have," he replied, "by proving me right." "About what?" "That you were meant for something bigger." His words hung in the air, and for a moment she could not breathe. Then a knock on the door interrupted them. A group of students had arrived for their afternoon art class, and just like that, the moment passed. Over the following weeks, their bond grew stronger. They had dinner together often, sharing stories about work and life. But with each passing day, Emma began to notice something different in Liam's eyes. It was not just admiration anymore, it was something softer, warmer, and she felt it too, though she tried to ignore it. Love had never been part of her plan. One evening, as they were cleaning up after a small exhibit, Liam said quietly, "I have been thinking, we should expand. Maybe open another branch in Brooklyn, or even out of state." Emma looked up surprised. "Already? We just opened." "Yes, but people are talking, Emma. The studio is getting attention. This could be something big." She smiled. "Let us take it one step at a time. I do not want to lose what makes it special." He nodded, his eyes lingering on her face. "You are right. I just get carried away sometimes." She laughed. "That is what dreamers do." He hesitated, then said softly, "You know, you have changed me." "How so?" "Before you, everything I did was about profit, results, deadlines. But now, when I walk in here and see those kids painting, see you smiling, I realize there is more to life than business." Emma felt her chest tighten. "Liam," she began, but he interrupted gently, "You do not have to say anything." I just wanted you to know." That night, after he left, she sat alone in the quiet studio, staring at one of her unfinished paintings. Her heart was racing, her mind filled with questions. She cared about him more than she wanted to admit, but she was afraid. Their worlds were still so different. Could something real exist between them? A week later, Liam invited her to an event at his company headquarters. "Just a small gathering," he said. "I want to introduce you to some people who could help with funding for future projects." She hesitated, but finally agreed. When she arrived that night, dressed in a simple black dress, she immediately felt out of place. The crowd was full of executives, investors, and people who looked like they belonged to another planet. Liam greeted her warmly and introduced her to several people, but she could sense the curious glances, the whispers. One woman leaned over to another and said quietly, "Is she the artist he is funding?" Interesting choice. Emma's stomach dropped. For the rest of the evening she smiled politely, but the insecurity gnawed at her. When Liam finally found her later, she was standing alone near the exit. "Hey," he said softly, "you disappeared. Everything okay?" She forced a smile. "I am fine. Just tired." But as he looked at her, he could tell something was wrong. "Emma, talk to me," he said gently. "Not here," she whispered. "Please, just take me home." The drive was quiet. She stared out the window, her mind swirling with emotions she could not name. When he parked outside her building, she turned to him and said quietly, "Liam, maybe this, whatever this is, was not supposed to happen." He froze. "What are you talking about? You belong in that world." "I do not. I appreciate everything you have done for me, but I cannot be a part of something that makes me feel small." Her voice cracked as she spoke, and before he could respond, she got out of the car and walked away into the night, leaving Liam sitting there in stunned silence as the rain began to fall again. The morning after the gala, Emma woke up still replaying the events of the night before. The music, the lights, and most of all, the dance with Liam. It felt unreal. She had gone there as staff, yet somehow he had made her feel like she belonged among those glittering people. She smiled faintly to herself before shaking the thought away. It had just been a dance, nothing more. People like Liam Parker did not fall for girls like her. Still, when her phone buzzed, her heart jumped. It was a message from him. "Hope you got home safe. Thank you again for everything last night. Lunch on me?" She stared at the screen for a full minute, unsure how to respond. Part of her wanted to say no, to keep her distance, but curiosity and something deeper made her type back, "Sure. When and where?" A few hours later, she found herself sitting across from him at a small restaurant near Central Park. It was a far cry from the elegant gala, but it felt warm and genuine. Liam smiled when she arrived, standing up to greet her. "You look different in daylight," he said, his tone teasing but kind. "That is a compliment, I promise." She laughed softly. "I will take your word for it." As they ordered, the conversation flowed easily. He told her about his company, how he had built it from scratch, how success had come at a cost. She listened, surprised at how open he was. "It is not always glamorous," he said. "People see the money and the title, but not the sleepless nights or the sacrifices." "I can imagine," Emma replied. "Dreams are never easy, but I guess that is what makes them worth it." He looked at her, his eyes warm. "You talk like someone who knows what chasing dreams feels like." She smiled. "Maybe because I do." For a moment their eyes met, and neither of them looked away. It felt like something was shifting, something real. After lunch, they walked through the park, their conversation turning lighter. They talked about art, favorite books, childhood memories. Emma could not remember the last time she had laughed that much. As they reached the end of the path, Liam turned to her. "Emma, I know this might sound forward, but I would like to help you with your dream." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "Your art studio," he said. "You told me about it. I have connections, resources. I could help you get started." She shook her head immediately. "No, Liam. I appreciate the thought, but I cannot accept that. I do not want you to feel obligated to help me just because—" "It is not about obligation," he interrupted gently. "I believe in what you are capable of. You have something rare, Emma. You just need a chance." His sincerity disarmed her. She wanted to argue, to refuse, but his eyes told her this was not pity, it was belief. "I will think about it," she said finally. He smiled, clearly satisfied. "That is all I ask." Over the next few weeks, they saw more of each other. Sometimes it was coffee between meetings, other times late-night phone calls when he wanted to unwind from work. Their bond grew quietly, built on shared honesty and small moments that felt too natural to ignore. Emma began to see the man behind the suit, the one who listened when she talked, who remembered the small things she said, who treated her not like an employee but like an equal. Yet deep down, she was afraid. She knew their worlds were different. He was a man of influence, and she was still living paycheck to paycheck, taking odd jobs to support her uncle. One evening, while sketching by her window, her phone buzzed again. It was Liam. Big news. "Can you meet me tomorrow morning? I have something to show you." The next day, she met him in front of an empty building downtown. The windows were covered in dust. The For Leases sign faded. "What is this?" she asked, confused. Liam smiled. "A space with potential. You once said you dreamed of opening a studio. Well, this could be it." Emma's breath caught. "Liam, I cannot let you do this." "You are not letting me do anything," he said calmly. "We are doing this together. You will run it. I will help with the investment. It is not charity, Emma. It is a partnership." She looked at him, torn between fear and excitement. "Why me?" she asked softly. He smiled, stepping closer. "Because you see the world differently, and because you reminded me what purpose feels like." Emma's eyes shimmered with emotion. For the first time in years, she dared to believe again. When Emma and Liam finally found their way back to each other, it felt like the weight of the world had lifted. They stood in silence for a long moment, holding each other as if afraid to let go. The city noises outside faded away, leaving only the sound of their breathing and the steady rhythm of their hearts. Liam pulled back slightly to look at her, his expression soft but certain. "You have no idea how long I have waited for this," he said. Emma smiled through her tears. "Maybe we both needed time to see things clearly." From that moment on, things began to fall back into place. Their relationship grew stronger, not rushed, but built on the foundation of trust and understanding. Emma spent her days at the studio, and Liam, though busier than ever, always found time to stop by. He no longer came as a businessman overseeing an investment, but as someone who genuinely cared about the people and the place she had built. One afternoon, as they were setting up for a new exhibit, Emma found herself laughing as Liam tried to hang a painting slightly crooked. "You are terrible at this," she teased. "You keep saying that, but I think I am improving," he replied with a grin. "Improving would mean the frame is straight," she said, walking over to fix it. He smiled, watching her focus. "You know, I never thought I would enjoy this kind of chaos," he admitted. "But being here, seeing what you have created it, is the best part of my day." Emma looked up at him, her eyes warm. "You are not just helping anymore, Liam. You are part of this now." He reached out and brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. "I would not want to be anywhere else." Weeks turned into months, and the studio continued to grow. Word spread about the success of Brooks Art Collective, and more people came to see the work Emma and her students were doing. She started hosting charity events, raising funds to provide free classes for underprivileged kids. Liam was there at every event, standing quietly by her side, proud of the woman she had become. One evening, as they closed up after a long day, Emma sat on the floor surrounded by empty coffee cups and paintbrushes. Liam brought over a blanket and sat beside her. "You are going to burn yourself out," he said gently. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Maybe, but this is what I love." "I know," he said softly. "And that is why I love you." Emma froze for a moment before looking up at him. His eyes were sincere, his voice steady. "I mean it, Emma. I love you. Not because of what you have done or built, but because of who you are." Her heart swelled with emotion. She reached out and took his hand. "I love you too, Liam. I think I have for a long time." The confession hung in the air like a promise. From that night on, things changed quietly but beautifully. They started planning a future together, small steps at first, but filled with meaning. Emma began to envision not just the next phase of her studio, but also a life that included him. Months later, Liam surprised her with a weekend getaway to the countryside. It was quiet there, away from the noise of the city. On their last night, they took a walk under the stars. The air was cool, and the world felt still. "Do you ever think about how all this started?" Emma asked. Liam smiled. "A forgotten phone, a rainstorm, and a stubborn driver who refused to quit." She laughed softly. That driver had no idea what she was getting into. "Neither did I," he said, reaching for her hand. Then, after a long pause, he stopped walking and turned to face her. "Emma, there is something I have been meaning to ask you." Her heart skipped a beat as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Liam," she whispered, her eyes wide. He smiled nervously. "You once told me that dreams do not die, they wait. So maybe this is one of mine that has been waiting. Will you marry me?" Emma's eyes filled with tears as she covered her mouth with her hands. For a moment she could not speak, overwhelmed by emotion. Then she nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, Liam. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and as they kissed under the night sky, Emma realized that the girl who once drove a stranger through the rain had found everything she never knew she needed: love, purpose, and a forever she had not dared to dream of. The day of Emma and Liam's wedding arrived bathed in soft golden light. The ceremony was held in the same garden where they had hosted the first art charity together, a place that had come to symbolize not just beauty, but transformation. The flowers bloomed in delicate shades of white and pink, and the gentle hum of laughter and music filled the air. Guests took their seats among rows of white chairs, while Emma stood behind a curtain of ivy, her heart pounding in rhythm with the strings of the music. Her Uncle Joe was beside her, tears shining in his eyes. "You did it, kiddo," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Your parents would be proud." Emma smiled, her eyes glistening. "We did it, Uncle Joe. You and me." When the music began, she stepped forward. Every step felt surreal. Liam stood at the altar, waiting for her, dressed in a dark suit with a soft smile that carried every memory they had shared. The rain, the car rides, the laughter, the heartbreak, and the hope that had carried them here. When their eyes met, the world seemed to fade away. She reached him, and he whispered, "You look perfect." "You are not so bad yourself," she replied with a smile. The officiant began, his words gentle and steady, speaking about love, integrity, and the courage to believe in someone even when life made it difficult. When it came time for their vows, Liam went first. "Emma," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "the day I met you, I thought you were just a driver filling in for someone else. I had no idea you would drive straight into my life and change everything about it. You taught me that real success is not about money or titles, but about meaning, kindness, and love. You gave me back my purpose. I promised to stand by you in every storm and every sunrise for the rest of my life." Emma could barely hold back her tears as she spoke her own vows. "Liam, I never thought I would find someone like you. You saw me when I felt invisible. You believed in my dreams when I had stopped believing in them myself. You reminded me that love is not about the world we come from, but the world we build together. I promise to keep choosing you, every day, through every challenge and every joy." When they exchanged rings, the crowd erupted in gentle applause, and when they kissed, the moment felt timeless. As the reception began, the atmosphere was filled with joy. Children from the art studio danced around, and guests shared stories about how Emma and Liam's journey had inspired them. Even the city skyline in the distance seemed to glow a little brighter that night. Later, as the evening settled into soft laughter and music, Emma and Liam slipped away to the edge of the garden. The air was cool, the stars shimmering above them. "Do you remember the first day we met?" Liam asked, holding her hand. Emma laughed. "Of course. You left your phone in the back seat. And you ran after me in the rain," he said, smiling. "That was the moment I knew there was something different about you." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "If someone had told me that day that I would end up here, I would have laughed. And yet here we are," he whispered. They stood in silence for a moment, the world around them quiet except for the rustle of the trees. "You know," Emma said softly, "I think my uncle was right about one thing. Integrity really is doing the right thing when no one's watching." Liam smiled, tightening his hand around hers. "And love," he added, "is doing the right thing even when it is hard." She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "I think we did both." "We did," he said, kissing her forehead. As they turned back toward the celebration, hand in hand, the sounds of laughter and music wrapped around them. The girl who once replaced her uncle as a driver had become the woman who built a life filled with art, love, and integrity. And the millionaire who had once believed success was measured in numbers had discovered that the greatest wealth of all was found in the heart. Together, they walked forward, two souls who had met by accident but stayed by choice, forever.